My wealthy parents made me clean the mansion before every family gathering while my cousins sipped champagne. "You're lucky we even let you stay here," my mother scoffed. A few minutes later, I showed everyone what she really meant by stay, and why it would be her last time hosting. I, F29, grew up in a wealthy family, but that doesn't mean I ever felt loved or accepted. Ever since I was a kid, I was expected to clean the house and do all the work before every family gathering. My parents are high society types, and my cousins and aunts/uncles were always sipping champagne, acting like they were above me. My mother, especially, would belittle me constantly, reminding me how lucky I was to stay in their mansion while I did all the work. The last family gathering changed everything, though. I did something I had never done before: stood up for myself. I want to know if I was justified or if I went too far. Here's what happened. It all started the way every family gathering did. The long, cold drive to the mansion. The familiar sight of the sprawling estate in the hills above Portland. My parents' home, if you could call it that, was more of a palace. I remember thinking, as I turned the corner onto the long, winding driveway, that it looked like a set for some movie. Perfectly manicured lawns, a fountain that spit water in intricate patterns, and the sound of birds chirping as if they were programmed to do so. My mother, Anne, had designed the entire place. Everything had its place, and if you didn't keep things in place, there were consequences. My mother liked to host, she was the center of the universe at these gatherings, and I was the backdrop. The one who cleaned. The one who made sure everything looked perfect before the guests arrived. The one who served. That was my job. Everyone else was free to indulge in their wealth and status, chatting, drinking, laughing, while I worked, as I always had. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and I had arrived early to begin preparing. I was the one up at dawn, scrubbing floors, setting the tables, arranging flowers, and making sure every room in the house was spotless before the guests even thought about walking in. I didn't have a choice. My older brother, Jacob, and younger sister, Nora, were already inside the mansion, lounging in the living room, sipping their coffee like they had no care in the world. Jacob was always the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong, and Nora, she was beautiful and poised, like a mini version of my mother, charming everyone she came into contact with. Meanwhile, I felt like I was invisible. "You know, Ainsley," Jacob said to me, his voice just loud enough for me to hear over the sound of the vacuum, "you're really starting to sweat. Maybe you should slow down a bit. We don't want you passing out from exhaustion before dinner." I didn't respond. I never did. What was the point? Jacob had never really understood what it was like to be in my shoes. My shoes, always carrying the weight of this family's expectations, always treated like I was somehow less than everyone else. As I worked, I could hear the sound of glasses clinking and laughter echoing through the house from the living room. My cousins had arrived, already dressed to the nines in their designer clothes, sipping champagne and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. They walked past me as if I wasn't there, never once offering a word of help, never once acknowledging the fact that I was the one who'd been up for hours preparing everything. "Doesn't she look a little tired?" my cousin Charlotte whispered to her mother, loud enough for me to hear. I had been hearing these comments for years. At first, it was a soft jab here and there, but over time, they became sharper, more biting. It wasn't that they hated me, per se, it was more like they didn't even see me. I wasn't part of the world they occupied, a world where wealth and status made you important. And in my family, that was all that mattered. The rest of us, people like me, were only as good as our usefulness to them. As the guests started to fill the house, I kept working. Dinner was nearing, and everything had to be perfect. My mother, Anne, was making her rounds, directing everyone with her usual brand of cold efficiency. "Ainsley," she called out, her tone sharp. "The flowers look cheap. Did you even try to match the colors?" I bit back a sigh. She had no idea how hard I worked to make everything look just right. But that didn't matter to her. She had a vision, and I was the one who was supposed to make it happen. Sorry, Mom. I'll fix it, I said, not because I wanted to, but because it was easier than dealing with her anger. I went to the dining room and began adjusting the centerpiece. The white roses didn't match the tablecloth exactly, but I had done the best I could with the budget I had. My mother's eyes were always looking for something to criticize, and I was her go-to target. It had always been like that. Can't you work a little faster? She snapped, walking by me. You're lucky we even let you stay here for these holidays. We have plenty of room in the guest house if you want to go back to your little apartment and not cause any more trouble. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Her words hit me every time, but I had learned a long time ago not to fight back. It was pointless. If I stood up for myself, it would just be another thing to add to her list of reasons why I wasn't good enough. I continued working, though a fire was starting to simmer in the pit of my stomach. I was tired. Tired of doing all the work while everyone else had fun. Tired of feeling like I was invisible. Tired of always being the one who had to earn the right to be treated with respect in my own family. Dinner was finally served, and the guests gathered around the table, their laughter and chatter filling the room. I hovered near the edges, always on the periphery. My job was to serve, not to sit. That's when it happened. My mother, her voice as sharp as a blade, called me over. Ainsley, you're supposed to be serving the guests. You know, the people who actually matter. Her words, though intended to sting, felt like a slap in the face. Mom, I'm just finishing up, I said, my voice a little too calm, a little too controlled. You should be grateful we even let you stay here, she scoffed, turning away from me to speak to one of the guests. I froze. There it was again, the message that I was a burden. A guest in my own home. For the first time in my life, I did something I'd never done before. Without thinking, I walked away from the table. I didn't know what I was doing at first, but the anger was rising within me, thick and hot. I didn't care anymore about the dinner, about the guests, about the way things had always been. I was done being the invisible daughter. I was done being the servant. I made my way upstairs, my footsteps quiet but deliberate. The mansion was silent as I reached my parents' room. The door was always locked, but today, I was done following the rules. I knew where the key was hidden. I entered the room, my heart pounding in my chest. Everything was as it had always been, luxurious, pristine. But there, tucked behind the large mirror on the wall, was something I had never noticed before: security cameras. The feed from the cameras was clearly visible from a small control panel, and I realized with sudden clarity what I had stumbled upon. My parents had been recording everything for years. Their words, their criticisms, they were all being captured. Without a second thought, I connected the security system to the speakers downstairs. I wasn't sure what would happen, but I knew I couldn't take it anymore. I pressed the button. My mother's voice rang out, amplified through the speakers. Ainsley, you're nothing but a burden. You're lucky we even let you stay here. You're not even worth the time we've spent on you. The room went silent. My mother's voice echoed, and then my father joined in, his voice thick with frustration. You'll never be anything more than this, someone who cleans and caters to us. You're pathetic. I didn't know how long I stood there, watching their faces fall. But for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in years. I felt empowered. The silence that followed the blast of my mother's voice was deafening. I couldn't hear a single word from downstairs for a long moment, though I could imagine the chaos unfolding. The shock, the disbelief. Everyone who had been enjoying their champagne, their polished smiles, their air of superiority, they were now hearing everything I had ever endured. Every cruel, dismissive word, every insult, every small, cutting jab my parents had aimed at me over the years was out in the open. The truth was no longer hidden behind closed doors. And they had no idea I had the power to expose it. I stood in the middle of the room, the hum of the speakers still vibrating in my ears, as I watched the chaos unfold downstairs through the camera feed. I saw Jacob freeze. I could almost hear his thoughts. What the hell is happening? I watched Nora glance nervously at my parents, unsure of what to do. She was always the one to smooth things over, the one who stayed neutral, the one who was never truly on anyone's side, just trying to keep the peace, no matter what. But today, there would be no peace. Not from me. And my parents. Well, my mother was the first to snap out of the shock. Her face was red, her hand trembling as she reached for the speaker system to shut it off. But I could see her frustration mounting. She looked around, trying to gather herself before storming toward the stairs. I wasn't ready to face them yet. Not like this. I had done something that could never be undone, and I wasn't sure where to go from here. I stood still in my parents' bedroom, the door slightly ajar. I had done it. I had finally found my voice, even if it came in the form of a shocking betrayal of their expectations. But now that it was out, I felt empowered, sure, but also unsure of what would happen next. And then, I heard it, the first footsteps coming up the staircase. My mother. She appeared in the doorway, her face a mix of fury and disbelief. "What did you think you were doing, Ainsley?" she spat. Her voice, once commanding, now quivered with rage. You have no idea what you've just done." I didn't say anything at first. I could feel the anger rising inside me, threatening to break free. But I didn't want to react too quickly. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. "Answer me," she demanded, her voice sharp. I stood there, the weight of the years of mistreatment pressing down on me. Finally, I looked her in the eye. "I'm not going to let you do this anymore. Not to me. Not to anyone." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't understand, Ainsley. You don't understand how lucky you are. This family has given you everything, and this is how you repay us? By humiliating us in front of everyone?" Her words were so familiar, her way of twisting things to make it seem like I was the problem, like I was the one who had wronged them. But this time, I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. "You've given me nothing," I replied quietly, but firmly. "You've taken everything from me, my worth, my dignity, my sense of self. I've spent my entire life cleaning up your mess, making sure everything is perfect for you, just so I can be allowed to stay here, as you put it." My mother's face twisted with rage. "You ungrateful little—" "No," I interrupted her, my voice steady, cutting through the rising storm. "I've had enough of being your doormat. You treat me like I'm less than you, like I don't matter. But I'm done. I'm done living like this." I could see the disbelief in her eyes. She couldn't understand what was happening. My mother, who had spent my entire life making me feel small, now stood before me with no words to defend herself. For once, she had no power. And then, behind her, I saw Jacob and Nora standing in the doorway, watching, uncertain, confused. They weren't sure how to react to what was happening, but I could see it in their eyes. This was a moment none of us would ever forget. "Ainsley," Jacob began, his voice hesitant. "This isn't the way to do this. You can't just—" "I'm not asking for your approval, Jacob," I cut him off. "I'm doing what I should have done years ago. I'm standing up for myself." I felt a pang in my chest. This was my brother, the person who had always been treated as the perfect son, the one who was given everything on a silver platter. He couldn't understand what it had been like for me, the one who was never enough. The one who always had to prove my worth. My mother's voice broke through my thoughts. "I'll never forgive you for this. You're ruining everything, Ainsley. You've always ruined everything." I was used to her words by now, but for the first time, they didn't hurt. I finally took a step forward, walking past her and down the staircase. I didn't need to wait for her response. I was done waiting for permission, done hiding in the shadows. I walked through the dining room, where my cousins and the rest of the family were still in stunned silence. Their eyes followed me as I passed, and I could hear the faintest whispers beginning to ripple through the room. I didn't care. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I wasn't going to shrink into the background while everyone else drank champagne and laughed about how much better their lives were than mine. I wasn't going to let my mother or anyone else dictate my worth. And then, just as I reached the grand entrance hall, I heard my father's voice, deep and booming, calling my name. "Ainsley, get back here," he ordered, his tone cold and authoritarian. But I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. I kept walking, my heart pounding in my chest. I was done. I was done with all of it. I heard my mother's angry shout behind me. "If you leave, you're never welcome here again. You'll never be part of this family." The words cut through the air like a knife, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. I reached the door, opened it, and stepped outside, into the cold night air. I didn't know where I was going yet. But I didn't need to. For the first time in my life, I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I wasn't cleaning their mansion or earning their approval. I was doing it for me. The cold air hit me as soon as I stepped outside, the kind of chill that made you feel alive, even as your body trembled. I didn't know where I was going. My mind raced, but the fog seemed to lift the moment I left the mansion behind me. I wasn't running away. Not anymore. I was finally free from the suffocating grip of my family's expectations. I found myself walking down the long driveway, not looking back. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about the next thing I had to do for them or wondering if they were judging me for everything I hadn't done yet. I was simply existing, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But as I walked, my thoughts began to settle, and I started to wonder what the hell I was supposed to do next. Where could I go? I could feel the world shifting beneath my feet as I processed what I had just done. I had never taken a stand like this before. Sure, I had complained quietly to myself or in private to a friend, but I had never exposed the truth like this, had never spoken my truth aloud in such a public way. As I walked down the road, I tried to calm myself. I needed to think, to figure out what my next move was. Suddenly, the sound of tires crunching on gravel broke through my thoughts. I turned, surprised to see a car pulling up beside me. I almost didn't recognize the vehicle at first. It was a black sedan, sleek and polished. The windows rolled down slowly, and I saw Nora in the passenger seat, looking out at me with wide, uncertain eyes. "Ainsley, wait," she called out, her voice softer than I expected. "Please, let's talk." I stopped in my tracks. For a moment, I thought about turning around and walking away, about telling her to go back to the mansion with the rest of the family and leave me out of their games. But I couldn't. Nora was my sister, after all. Even if we hadn't been close in a long time, she was still family. I walked toward the car, feeling the breeze run through my hair as she rolled the window down completely. "I know this is crazy," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I can't believe what just happened. Mom and Dad are going nuts. They're furious. They're saying you're never coming back, and I don't know what to do." "But, Ainsley, are you okay? Are you really okay?" For the first time in years, I felt like she wasn't just looking at me with pity, like she wasn't silently judging me. There was genuine concern in her voice. It wasn't the kind of sympathy that felt condescending, but the kind that felt like it was coming from someone who had finally realized something. "I'm fine," I replied, my voice steadier than I thought it would be. Better than fine, actually. I've never felt freer in my life. Nora bit her lip, clearly torn. "You don't have to do this. You could come back. You know Mom and Dad, they'll calm down eventually." "They don't mean it, Ainsley. It's just how they are. They're angry right now, but they'll come around." You don't have to leave for good. I shook my head. Nora, this isn't about them. It never was. You don't get it. They've treated me like a servant for years, and I've let them. I let them make me feel like I was never good enough, never deserving of the same treatment as everyone else. She stayed silent for a moment, clearly processing my words. I didn't know you felt like that. I mean, I've always seen how hard you work, but I guess I never realized how much it bothered you. I nodded, my voice softening. It's not just the work. It's the way they talk to me, the way they think they can control everything about my life. I'm not their employee, Nora. I'm their daughter. And if they don't see me as that, then I'm done. I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes. She wasn't entirely convinced yet, but I could tell she was beginning to understand. I want you to be happy, Ainsley, she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. But I don't know if leaving like this is the answer. It's going to tear the family apart. I shook my head again. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. You can keep pretending everything is fine if you want to, but I'm not going to anymore. I can't. I have to find my own way, my own life. And I don't need their approval to do that. Nora stared at me for a long time, and for the first time, I saw her in a different light. Maybe she wasn't the perfect daughter like Jacob. Maybe she wasn't the one who always followed the rules, but she wasn't completely brainwashed by the way they treated me. There was a glimmer of rebellion in her, too, just hidden under layers of fear and obligation. After what felt like an eternity of silence, she nodded slowly. Okay, I get it. I don't know how things will work out between you and them, but I'll support you. I don't know if they ever will. I don't need them to, I said quietly, but firmly. There was no dramatic reunion, no magical reconciliation. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally being seen. I was finally speaking my truth, and the world didn't end. Thank you, Nora, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't expect you to fix anything. I just needed you to hear me. She gave me a sad smile, but she didn't say anything else. Instead, she drove off, leaving me standing there in the quiet of the night. I wasn't sure what would happen next. Would my family ever talk to me again? Would they ever understand what I had done, or would they continue to see me as the rebel, the disappointment? I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. My parents didn't contact me. The calls from Jacob and Nora slowed down to nothing. It was like I had fallen off the map entirely, erased from their world. But for the first time in years, I was breathing. I moved into a small apartment in the city, just a few blocks away from where I had grown up. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I got a job in an art gallery, something I had always wanted to do but was too scared to pursue while my parents controlled everything about my life. For the first time, I wasn't doing things for anyone but me. Then, one evening, I received a call from Nora. I don't know if you'll ever forgive us, she said quietly. But Mom and Dad are different now. They're actually listening. They've been thinking about what you said. They don't get it, but they've started seeing that maybe, just maybe, they've been wrong. They're still angry. But they want to talk. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I'm not coming back, Nora, I said, my voice firm. But I'm willing to listen. If they're willing to change. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that for the first time, I wasn't bound by anything but my own choices. My family could try to rebuild our relationship on new terms, or they could let the old ways die. Either way, I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. And that, in itself, was the sweetest revenge I could have ever hoped for.